Okay, welcome, beautiful souls and fellow health enthusiasts, to another fabulous episode of the Faith, Fitness, Joy podcast. I am your host, Rochelle Renee. I'm also a health coach and healer, and I am so excited for today's episode. I am very pleased to welcome JD Steinberger, who is a mindset and fitness specialist and creator, owner, and founder of JD's OTZ Academy. And today's episode is episode number 123, and it is called Optimizing Wellness and Longevity with Fitness. So we're going to be diving into that topic today. Something that, as you know, listening to this podcast is near and dear to my heart and something I am very passionate about. And JD is also equally excited and passionate about this work and all of the benefits of exercise and fitness. Before we jump into today's episode, if you haven't already, remember to like, share, and subscribe if you aren't already subscribed to the podcast. Also, if you like this podcast, contributions and support are always appreciated and welcome. And thank you to all of you who continue to loyally listen and tune into this podcast. So without further ado, we will go ahead and jump into today's discussion. So first of all, welcome, JD. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Rochelle, for having me. This is exciting. Glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. You have quite a background and also, very much a fitness and health enthusiast. And so I know you and I have talked a little bit about your story and your passion for fitness and wellness. And one of the things that you shared with me was the idea and this concept of fitness as kind of an investment in our future. And there's so many benefits to exercise and taking care of our body and our health. But one of the things I think a lot of people don't always think about, like right away is how it is like this investment in our future, and it can help us remain independent longer. It can help us maintain health and strength and mobility as we get older, which is you can't put a price or a value on it. It's just, I don't know. I think about that a lot. So can you share a little bit more with the audience about kind of, where you're coming from with that and kind of what led you to that, and maybe what's kind of helped you, just connecting those dots and really getting kind of fired up about that aspect of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Probably the best way to do it, maybe to share a little bit about just kind of my story. Is that good jumping off point?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Great. So I'm 49 years old. Fifth generation San Franciscan. There's very, very few fifth generation San Franciscans. So I'm very, very proud to say that. I grew up, I was an only child to divorced parents. And my journey in fitness and the understanding of why it's important to be healthy and fit and eat right and take care of ourselves started from a very young age. My mother was an addict, and my dad was around, but he really wasn't around, and so I was primarily raised by my grandparents in San Francisco. There wasn't a there wasn't a big influence or emphasis on sports or athletics or nutrition or health. Like, I grew up in a family of smokers and a family of drinkers. Later in life, my stepfather, he was a heroin addict. So I had a large gap of time from the time I was 4 when my parents got divorced, where I didn't see my mom very much. And when I did, it was a lot of unhealthy behavior and really bad experiences. And so I always loved playing sports. And maybe that was an outlet for me to kind of escape what was really a bad trauma-filled childhood. And so I engaged in a lot of physical activities my entire life. When I got into high school, I was a martial artist that I used to fight in those Karate Kid style tournaments,
Oh yeah.
So like when that movie came out in, I think, 1985, 1986, I really could relate to it. I was a star tennis player in San Francisco at the time, and as well as soccer. So I was always doing stuff. I was always being active. And then I started getting into weightlifting with some high school buddies. And our friend Steve, and we're still friends to this day, his dad was a cable car brakeman, and he had these big giant forearms, and we all wanted to look like Mr. D, Mr. Della Gazada. And he had this great gym in their house. And so we would all congregate at Steve's house as much as we could. And we'd play around with the weights and stuff, and nobody took it really serious at the time. Fast forward till maybe 20 years old, that's when I started really taking it seriously. And I started getting into bodybuilding. And so I had a couple of training partners who were my best friends. And little did we know, or little did I know, that having training partners, living a healthy lifestyle, we went out and partied and raised hell. Don't get me wrong, we were in our 20s. But the accountability to each other. So I don't think we understood it, at least I didn't at the time. But here I am 49 years later, still pulling from those memories of being accountable to my training partners, being accountable to myself. That was a life lesson that I've taught my kids. Forget about the gym and all that stuff, just being accountable to what your word is. You say you're going to do something, you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so fitness, and it doesn't have to be, powerlifting or weightlifting. It could be, gymnastics, calisthenics. It could be anything, jogging, walking, anything. If you have a partner in that, you want to be accountable. And so all of these great life lessons I've been pulling from my fitness journey. What really got me into, and I have an addictive personality, and so there have been a lot of bad things that I've been addicted to in my life, and fortunately not anymore. But the good part about addiction is I was addicted to the pump. I was addicted to going to the gym and feeling the dopamine hits and getting those endorphins moving, and that is a positive addiction for me. And so I looked at my family members, and I looked at the people in my life that were abusing their bodies with drugs and alcohol, and no emphasis at all on health. And I had the blueprint very early on, like, I don't want to be that way. I don't want that for me. So I just kept going back to the gym over and over and over, started eating right, and it really wasn't, I guess maybe in my 20s, there could have been a lot of vanity involved with that. I wanted to have the six pack and for the girls and all that stuff. But, at 49 now, the vanity part's long gone. And it's really about just maintaining my ability to be independent, physically independent. And so when in my 40s, I have to tell you, I have had 2 hip surgeries, or 3 hip surgeries, 2 hip replacements already. I was the youngest recipient in the North American continent to have a hip replacement done by a robot 5 years ago, when I was 44 years old. My surgeon, Dr. Thomas Peatman, out of John Muir in Danville, gave me that crown. Not something that I wanted, but I beat myself up. I abused my body so much, and I fought through these structural injuries by telling myself, suck it up, or don't be a bitch, and all of these things where I'd belittle myself or challenge myself, when in reality, I needed to say, hey, wait a minute, there's a problem here. You need to chill out, slow down. It's okay if you don't fight through this. I never did that in my younger years, and I paid the price. So I've had 10 orthopedic surgeries behind me, 2 full hips, brand new, and I'm only 49 years old.
Wow.
So you asked me about, what got me started and the motivation and my passion and purpose for what I'm doing now and helping and teaching others. And that's really it. So when I call myself a mindset and fitness specialist rather than like a coach, yeah, I'm a coach, but I'm a specialist because I have biohacked my body for over the last 10 years through PRP, stem cells, hyaluronic acid treatments, hyperoxygen chambers, peptides, you name it. I've done it. I've charted it. I've logged it. I've journaled it, as well as programming hundreds and hundreds of different types of training modules and programs for injury prevention, maintenance, and rehab. So pre and post surgery. And so that's really where I'm a specialist at. I want to reach to the people that are beat up like me, that maybe have injuries or excuses on why they can't or won't train, because the excuses is a mindset part, and I can definitely help with that too. And so I can be a little long-winded, so this podcast may run for 4 hours. I apologize for that. But that's the backbone behind everything that I do. I want to help people as much as possible. And the main thing that I want to get across in this podcast too, Rochelle, is that when we hit the age of 30, our decretion of, if decretion is even a word, it is now, our muscle mass decreases so much by the age of 30, and then it compounds after that for every decade. And so
yeah.
I have a joking kind of saying that I say, I want to put senior homes out of business. And what I mean by that is I want to be able to educate and help individuals in our prime years. I'm 49, I'm still in my prime years. I don't care what anybody says. But help those people in our prime years. And now here's a phrase that's gonna maybe trigger some folks. Muscle mass. Ooh, we don't say muscle mass, right? I feel like gym culture and the terms muscle mass and strength training, I feel like they got bad vibes, bad connotations a lot, and it shouldn't be. I don't want people to be intimidated by those terms. I think, when you think of gyms, what do you think of when you think of a gym? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of a gym or strength training or muscle mass?
Yeah, well, especially with the muscle mass in the mix. I mean, you think of like the big, like buff guys or like really lean, fit people. And I know like when I first started going, a lot of, this whole, it's intimidating because you have this like, I don't know, stereotype of like what you're going to experience when you walk in there.
Yeah, the stereotype. And then, hey, I remember the first time going to gym, I was super insecure. I didn't know what I was doing. I was intimidated by bigger, stronger, faster people around me. I don't, and that can be. And I think it's important if we can get as many people like yourself and myself out in the public talking about this stuff and helping people understand, like, hey, it's okay if you're scared or if you're intimidated by it. We're going to help you lose those insecurities and lose those feelings of maybe inadequacy, imposter syndrome. It goes on and on. The list goes on and on. Really, the important thing is, and why I say I want to put senior homes out of business, is because let's look at our seniors. Let's take a look at our elders, our grandparents. One of the big passions behind this was, before my mom died 4 years ago, I had to watch my mom lose fingers and toes, and then hands and feet and legs and arms due to diabetes.
Wow.
She was just losing body parts as she slowly died. And that is because she made decisions in her life. She made a choice to do drugs and alcohol and smoke and not eat right and all that. Now, look, I am no angel. I've done plenty of drugs and drank plenty of alcohol. I don't do that anymore. It's been years since I've done that. But I saw what happened to my mom. I've seen loved ones in senior centers, visited senior centers because I really enjoy being with seniors. I like kids. And I like seniors. I really don't like the people in between. I'm playing, kind of, but my point is people that need help are seniors and young people. And
Mm-hmm.
those are the people that need our help. But the group of us in between, in our middle-aged years, we're making decisions that just bring us to a level of comfortability. And we just want comfort day in and day out. There's a price for that comfort. And that
Yeah.
price gets paid in your golden years, where
Yeah.
you are now on prescription pills. Maybe you're in a wheelchair or a walker. And eventually you are in a senior home where you are, and I hate to say this, this may sound crude, but I want to be honest here, where do you want to burden your family with the financial burden of paying $10,000 a month for a senior home, or just the burden that they have, especially if you have your kids and they're trying to raise their children? Those are
Yeah.
busy times.
That is
And now,
so, that is like huge. I know it's a huge motivator for me now, kind of what you were saying a few minutes ago, where like in our younger years, it's much more about vanity, right? Like we want to look great and la la la. But then as we get older and as you continue it, like it all shifts to like looking at what you're talking about. So I want to kind of shift a little bit kind of to the other kind of things I wanted to ask you about. I think we could kind of like talk about these in one sort of question, because you touched on so many great things there. And one of them was mindset. And another thing was kind of this age group that we're in, like in the, mid 40s, and this part of our life, even back up to like 30, like you were saying, right? Where it's like we kind of don't maybe consciously think about it this way, but it's like there's an element of, well, I'm still okay. Like I'm, this age, I'm still fit. I'll worry about that later, kind of a thing. So I guess kind of how did you start to get to like not just looking at this, I mean, understanding your personal story and what led you to this, but how do you kind of work with people in a professional sense now that you're in this space, especially around like helping them get invested in this for themselves and getting like to really see the importance of looking further ahead at their wellness, and like you're saying, not wanting to be a burden on your kids, not wanting to, and wanting to, maintain your independence. And a lot
yeah,
of things that we see happening with our seniors can be prevented if people make this investment, regardless of where you're starting, like what age you're starting it at.
yeah, that's the hard part, right? Is getting, and forget about the age at this point, is just getting people to understand why this is important. And I think you brought up a really good point. Like, you're in your 30s, or you're feeling healthy, and you're like, no, I feel fine right now. I feel fine. And we all go off of this thing, and I'm going to generalize and speak for everybody here. I'm pretty good at that. Where automatically, if I'm having a good day today, well, tomorrow is going to be just like today, right?
Yeah.
And we get caught in this trap of thinking that way. And it's a really bad trap to be in. And so, I think I was I was in my previous career was spent 28 years in commercial construction management in downtown San Francisco. And so I was pretty high up on the food chain in that towards the end of my career, the last 20 years of my career. And that's why I left. I had no more passion for it, and I had achieved everything I could possibly achieve. And I really wasn't helping a whole lot of people. I was helping corporations. But my point to that is I learned a tremendous amount of leadership skills because it was a leadership position. One of the things that I eventually plan on doing with my business is diving into leadership, but that's down the road. But to answer your question is really in my community, I do a lot of public speaking to addiction groups, 12-step recovery programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I lead by example. And I find that that is the best way, rather than me talking a bunch about what you should be doing, because nobody wants to hear, hey, let me tell you what you should be doing. Like, nobody wants
Right.
to hear that.
Yeah.
Instead, it's how I raise my kids. I'm just going to do what I think is right for you to be doing. And maybe you'll just follow my lead because I'm your dad, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So if, like if you hung around five smokers, what's the odds you're going to be the sixth smoker? Pretty high,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
So if you hang around a bunch of people that are getting fit and going on hikes and eating right, you're probably going to have that salad with them and maybe go do an exercise. And so that's what I try to do. I try to bring up groups together, groups of people together. Like I started a hike in our community a few years ago. At the peak, I had 43 people on my Evite list that would come and we'd do these huge group hikes together. People that never hiked before, but because we had leadership and myself and some others that were very, very good leaders, we slowly started to kind of educate people on, oh man, and the feedback you get, man, I was sore, but I feel really good. My energy level's up.
Mm-hmm.
And though, Rochelle, it's a slow process to do that. Like it's really slow and it's attention grabbing too. You really have to like kids, like raising kids, like you really have to keep checking in with them. But that's okay. I want to lead with service with people. I get more value out of helping others than I do helping myself. And that's the whole point of this business. So that's what I find is the magic on helping people get to those healthier levels in their life is simply by leading by example. I have a gym here at home. And so I have a pretty interesting gym where I do a lot of my specialty training here. And so I just have people come over. I have the neighborhood dads come over and then we'll do like heavy workouts together. But then I have some of the seniors come over where we're looking at that lower back and I'm giving recommendations or I'm giving them some programming to do. And so it's just chipping away little by little by little by slow to help. And I find that's the process that works for me.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I feel very similar, like what you were saying about helping other people. It's like, for me, I kind of found a lot of my own healing through the fitness doorway. I talk about this a lot. Like I was chasing skinny most of my life and I started really young. And I was struggling with things like body dysmorphia as a teenager. So I always had kind of this not so healthy obsession with it. But then over time, as I learned more about, the benefits of fitness and as I got older and things like that, it started to shift. But then I got to a point about 7 years ago with my own journey where like I found a lot of success in getting losing baby weight after my youngest. And but a big part of it for me was overcoming like depression and anxiety and drinking and doing like things that were like not the healthiest ways of coping with stress and overwhelm and all that stuff that comes with it. Um, and so then it turned into like I got to such a good place from doing all of that that I wanted to help other people. I didn't want to just like hang on to it. It was like, how can I help other people, especially other women and moms, find this same thing for themselves? Like it's because you hear things like, it's a time thing. I don't have time. I'm overwhelmed. It's too much to try to build that into my routine. And so then it's like, how can you help people like kind of what you're saying with leading by example? Like, yes, I was still working like ridiculous hours. I had a 2 hour commute. But I found a way to build this in and ultimately like learn to prioritize my health over things like my job. And so now you're in this space of like exploring more and more how you can help others improve their health and get fit. Um, so can you share a little bit more about your work and how you're doing that kind of in more of a professional sense now that you're kind of, shifting into this with your academy and how you're more focused on doing this in, kind of as a profession as well, and really like nurturing that passion for helping other people with their wellness and their fitness.
Yeah, yeah. Even just going back to my previous career, I started early. I was in San Francisco 3:30, 3:45 in the morning every day. I would open up my job site at 4 a.m. And I look at it this way. If I'm going to try to preach something to somebody, regardless of who it is, I better be doing that plus 10% more already. And I better have a historical evidence to prove that I've been doing this for a minute. Otherwise, I'm full of shit and I'm not even going to buy what I'm selling. And so, even through my construction career as a senior superintendent, I ran big jobs. I ran 15, $20 million tenant improvement projects. And I would help guys on the job site too, who were maybe had some ailments, some injuries. But it's leading by example. It's the leadership. If I can maintain that job, and you mentioned working a ton of hours, and then you prioritize, health finally over work, right? We all hold our identity with our job. I'm this, and that's my identity, or I'm a lawyer, that's my identity. No, I don't look at it that way. I don't think it has anything to do with our identity. And so it really just boils down to, I'm still doing everything I was doing before. I wake up at 3:16 every day. I don't know why 3:16. That's just what time I wake up. I post my alarm clock every day. So there's an accountability measure to myself and to the people that follow me. And so and let me know if I'm off track on your question here. I think your question was, how am I doing it now that I am fully with JD's OTZ Academy and then launching that? Is that what the question was?
Yeah, like how are you helping people improve their health and fitness through that?
Right. So part of so right now I have a 30-day transformation challenge. You get my app, you get my nutrition app, you get access to my private Facebook group, you get access to me and my free ebook. And part of it is that what I call hashtag alarm check, hashtag heart check. It's an accountability measure where I can't sit here and say, hey, I think this is the best route for you. Let's wake up a little bit earlier, okay? Because there's 24 hours in a day. And so you do have time to do a workout. Maybe not at the gym, but we can get you some stuff at home, some bands, some resistance bands, or just body weight, really. And let's prioritize this. Let's get up earlier. That's step one. Let's go to bed at the same time every night, and let's wake up at the same time every day. And let's start building that first. Easy stuff, right? But not so easy because people don't like waking up early. So that's where mindset comes in. But how can I tell my clients that, hey, I think you should wake up earlier if I'm just rolling out of bed at whenever o'clock?
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. I again would be full of crap. And so I'm not too shy for confrontation or challenging people, I should say. Confrontation is kind of a negative tone, but that's really what it is. Friendly confrontation, I guess I'd say. I believe that constructive criticism is needed for everything you're doing. I believe that being comfortable living in the uncomfortable that's where I like to be in my life. And so I want to challenge those people. Now, each person's different. And so I want to get to know you. I want to build a relationship with each one of my clients. So that way I can appropriately and tactfully challenge or confront that person in a friendly manner, and not in an adversarial manner, but in a way that's saying, hey, I care about you. And you're feeding yourself excuses and you're feeding me excuses. And now I'm going to help strip those down. We're going to strip them down together, and we're going to grow, and you're going to grow.
Yeah.
That's my approach. It's a slow approach, but it works. And so that's what I like to start with is that, and just really letting people know, you do have time to eat right and train, as I like to call it. I like to call it working out. I like to call it training, 'cause that's what it is. We're training ourselves. And so that's my approach with the business. I'm not looking at large numbers here and like, let's get volume, 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 because then I think that affects my business strategy as far as being able to help people, because that's ultimately what it is all about.
Yeah, I love that. And it reminds me of the last thing you were saying about the volume. It reminds me of something from a book. It's called Chill and Prosper, and her name's Denise Duffield Thomas. And one of the things she talks about is not cooking the golden goose kind of a thing. And you're the golden goose, right? It's like, but so when you try to overdo it, then the quality of what you can deliver, is affected by that. So I love that concept a lot. And I also love the concept of what you're talking about with more of an individualized approach. So I guess I'd be interested in what you do in regard to, like, do you also have like personalized one-on-one type of coaching programs? Do you do it in more of a group format, maybe both? Because I found in my own experience, I've been in both group coaching and the one-on-one, and I have found the one-on-one so much more helpful, because kind of like you're saying, everybody's different. And, you hear it a lot in these programs, like it's like, customized and tailored exercise and nutrition. And then you get in there and it's like the same thing applied to everybody versus like somebody actually looking at what you're doing, how it's going, and really working with you on what you specifically need. So if you do you offer anything along those lines as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely the group aspect for sure. There's the group aspect on the private Facebook page, which is a live Zoom. There's a mindset meeting on Mondays, which is a live Zoom, and I run all of these. And then there is the one-on-ones as well, and you're going to get a consultation from me at first. And then there's a VIP package for additional one-on-ones. But really, that's why I don't look at it from a volume perspective, because
Mm-hmm.
I am what I call a specialist, and I specialize in people that have had an extensive injury history, for example, or maybe they're battling something right now and they're just not sure how to go about a roundabout way to keep training, because we stub our toe and go, well, I can't work out today. No, because your biceps aren't your toe, so you can still do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to learn about each individual. And so unfortunately, there's some administrative forms that people fill out, much like going to the doctor's office. Circle here, your pain here, this and that. Everything down to, if you want to just print out your medical history and send that over. So I have a list. If it's a laundry list like mine, I'd have to actually hit print to give it to somebody, because there's
Mm-hmm.
too much stuff that I can't even remember.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's the only way I can help you. If you have let's say, compressed discs, and I'm loading you up with barbell squats, I'm not really looking out for your best interests, am I?
Right.
Now, if you have that same spinal decompression and I've paid attention and I've listened to you and I've done my due diligence with you, well, we still need to strengthen your legs first and foremost. So there's no way I'm loading your back with any weight whatsoever. And so at this point, we're going to do a lot of body squatting. Or if you have access to a belt squat machine, then you're going to jump on the belt squat. I have one in my garage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just an example of, I'm not going to program stuff for you where you have physical limitations. We're going to program workarounds for that. And we're going to program other stuff as far as maybe weak point training, or we're going to do some maintenance type work. We're going to do some rehabilitation type work. And if you have a shoulder injury, we're going to, before we do any overhead presses, we're going to work on rotator cuff, and we're going to work on your scapular retraction too. We want to get some foundation work going first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's phase one of my program, is the stabilization phase.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the 30-day challenge is about. It's a stabilization phase one out of a 5-phase program. If you opt to take the 12-month program, there's 5 phases to it.
Mm-hmm.
But before we do anything, I've got to make sure that we've stabilized your body. We've prepared your tendons and ligaments and joints for when we hit future stages, when we now do progressive loading. I can't just put you right into loading stage and you've never done a thing in your life, or maybe you've had an injury that you've recovered from, and you haven't lifted or trained in a while. And so it's not a it's not a boilerplate copy and paste solution
Mm-hmm.
for everybody by any means. And that's why I try to keep my numbers down, because of what you said. Don't fry the golden goose? Is
Yeah,
that?
don't cook the golden goose.
Yeah, yeah. So that's my approach. And it seems to be working. And I've had athletes of all different ages. I coached youth athletes for a long time, and as young as 8 years old,
Wow.
in Olympic lifting. And so you can take two ends of the spectrum, from a young athlete to an older person with injuries. I have to treat those two age groups really the same. We can't do progressive overloading with either one of those groups. We can't
Mm.
do max effort with either one of those groups. And so there's a slow build up to that. And so I have experience from very young, helping and training to even older. So I have both ends of the spectrum, and then that brings in the middle-aged group of people too. So I can really help anybody from 8 to 80. That's really
Yeah.
what where I specialize, is that wide vast of people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you definitely have a very well-rounded background, and obviously, lots of experience with this in both personal and kind of a professional sense. And we're just kind of coming up on time. So in the last couple minutes, I just wanted to get share with the listeners. So if people are wanting to work with you, and especially to get in on this 30-day challenge, which sounds like a great way to get a feel for everything, and check it out and see what it's like working with you. Where can they find out more about that? How can people find you and your challenge?
Sure. So I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as well, but the best place to find me is on Instagram at JD Steinberger.
Okay.
And there you can see a bunch of my content. I post I post client wins there, some personal stuff, family stuff as well, and then a lot of my workouts. And then I recently launched a yes or no form series, where I'm basically doing some exercises with poor form, and then in the side by side comparison, I'll do the exercise in the correct form. Because I find, watching a lot of fitness people online, I'm continuing to learn too. That's one thing I do want to say, is I'm looking at people that know more than me, and I'm taking from them. I'm
Yeah.
duplicating.
Mm.
So I'm always learning. But what I've found, as being on the other side and watching, like, well, that's great. I just saw your 10 different workouts on your post, but how about like giving me some information on proper form if I don't know it? And so that's why I started posting the yes or no form content. So yeah, find me on at JD Steinberger on Instagram. And then I have a sales funnel that my landing page that I shot over to you. So if people do want to
Okay.
I have a new ebook out as well that's free if you sign up. From struggle to strength, a muscle mass movement for the masses, where I talk about the importance of building and maintaining muscle mass throughout our years. And you can also have access to my landing page and take my free 30-day transformation challenge too.
Awesome. All right, great. Well, yeah, so for those of you tuning into the live on Facebook, or if you're catching this later, check out, I'll include the links for everything JD just mentioned in the comments on the Facebook Live. This will also go into all of the episode description information on the podcast apps, as well as the YouTube channel, which is _faith_fitness_joy_. So you can catch the replay on there as well and find all of this information about how you can connect with JD and work with JD, or get in on this awesome 30-day challenge that he's offering right now. So, well, that concludes today's episode of Faith, Fitness, Joy. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on, JD. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your incredible wealth of knowledge, and just great energy to have you on here today. I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a great time, and thanks for having me. And I'm going to start up a podcast and have you on too.
Awesome. I can't wait. I don't get to go on them as much, so that'll be fun.
That's right. I dare you to outtalk me.
That'll be a challenge. No, I'm just kidding.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have an awesome day. And thanks everyone for tuning in, and watch for those links, because you are not going to want to miss out on this incredible offer JD's got going right now. So have a great day, everyone.
See you, everybody.
Bye.